Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first in the series of HR masterclasses put together by Employment Hero. Today, we're going to be looking at how to craft an EVP where perks and purposes collide. I'm Jay, Josef James. Everybody calls me Jay. I'm an employment content specialist here at Employment Hero. And even though I kind of ask lots of questions, research and write about this stuff, I'm certainly not an expert. So today I have an expert with me on our panel, our head of talent acquisition, Kate Jolly. How are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm feeling very energized. I haven't done many UK webinars before. So even though I'm from the UK, haven't done a lot of content for that market, and very excited to be speaking to some of our UK customers or people that engage with the Employment Hero brand over there. So hello and good morning, everyone.
Brilliant. It's great to have you with us. Really excited to have you with us today. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Just so you know, we've allocated some time at the end of this webinar. If you do have any questions, do pop them in the Q&A box. Kate and I will be checking in on those at the end and answering some of your questions. And when I say we, I mostly mean Kate, of course. And also, all of the resources, the slides, anything that we share today will be sent to you in a follow-up email as well. So don't worry about that. If you'd like to watch this over and over again, then you have the ability to do so. So without further ado, let's get started. And today we are going to be covering the following things. We're going to be looking at why does an employee value proposition matter? We'll be looking at today's employee demographics in the workforce and the impact an EVP can have on that. We'll then look at the kind of crux of the question of today's webinar, which is building an EVP, and then how you can use that to scale. But before we get into that and tell you lots of wisdoms, we actually have a poll for you, because instead of telling you about what an EVP is to begin with, we want to know what you think an EVP is. So there should be a poll popping up on your screen at some point now. The question is, which of the following do you think best defines the employee value proposition or the EVP? You've got three answers. Is it A, the balance of rewards and benefits that your company offers its employees in return for their amazing performance? Is it B, your external reputation, how potential candidates perceive working at your company? Or is it C, showcasing your employee development paths, internal reward and recognition programs, and community initiatives? So I'll give you a little moment quickly to have a go at the poll. Okay, we're getting some of your answers in here. I believe everyone can see some of the answers there. So we've got a nice split really here. We've got 27% of you who believe it's the balance of rewards and benefits. 32% of you believe it's the external reputation and how potential candidates perceive working at your company, while 41% of you, so this one wins out, is showcasing your employee development paths, internal reward and recognition programs. So with that nice little split there, Kate, what do you think the answer is?
Yeah, it's an age-old question really for people that work in talent. I would personally define an employee value proposition as including everything that you are doing to attract and retain employees who are the right match for your company and your culture. So obviously, this includes your company perks and benefits, but really importantly, it also includes things like your company culture, your values, and your ways of working. So for example, Employment Hero is a remote first business, and being remote is a really huge part of our DNA. And whilst that is not a financial perk as such, it's a huge part of our culture, how we like to work, and it definitely helps to attract and retain a certain type of talent. And they tend to be people who are the best fit for us. Now, I would also like to highlight that your company's mission and purpose is a really critical component of your EVP. So for instance, if you're a fashion brand and your mission is to design sustainably sourced, affordable garments for conscious consumers, you should be shouting that from the rooftops. It will really help you to attract and retain talent that is passionate about fashion and that industry, but also environmentally conscious. And if that's what you do, then that's the right sort of talent for you and your company.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Kate. And just a quick reminder, as we had a nice even split down the middle there, if you answered B, just worth reminding you that the employer brand is something a little bit separate. So the answer B there kind of explained that. Employer brand is your external reputation. It's how candidates are going to perceive working on your company. And the EVP that we're talking about today actually influences that alongside some other factors. So just a reminder on that one. So now, Kate, we've got a bit of a clear definition of what an EVP is. Why should it matter to employers, including small businesses?
Yeah, great question. So as I kind of alluded to earlier, a strong EVP is the biggest tool at your disposal when it comes to both attracting and retaining the right talent. So maybe let's talk about talent attraction first, because it's my personal favorite topic. But as an employer, being able to find and secure talent that is the best possible fit for your organization and securing that talent at speed has a huge commercial impact on your business. When roles go unfilled for months on end, you miss out on some really important commercial impacts that hire would otherwise have brought to you. So to put it in context and maybe give you some examples, if you're hiring for a salesperson, having an unfilled sales role could quite literally mean that you have lost revenue as a result of not hiring that person quickly enough. Similarly, if you're looking for something like a bartender and you have an unfilled vacancy for several different months, it could cause you to be understaffed and as a result, give really poor customer service during a shift. As a bit of a side note, if you are hiring for roles at the moment and you can't think of the impact of your open vacancies and you're thinking it's not a big deal if they go a long time without being filled, you may wish to revisit that role and decide whether or not it's actually a good investment and whether or not you actually need to hire the role at all. But that's probably a conversation for another time. But to keep businesses kind of operating at their best and to make sure that you're getting the right commercial impact, as noted, it's really important that you find and hire the right talent quickly. But if you want to hire at speed and without compromising on quality, you need a really strong EVP to catch a candidate's attention. Joe, you were actually recently an active candidate in the market. So I'd actually quite like to hear a bit more about it from your standpoint. You joined Employment Hero quite recently. Tell me what it was like when you were job searching. Were there lots of employers and roles to choose from? Did you notice a company's EVP when you were kind of surveying your options? Tell us a bit more about kind of a candidate perspective.
Yeah, so I've been here about, just almost 7 going on 8 months. And I think when I was looking for jobs, I found that there were a lot of roles, but not a lot of intriguing employers. And I don't know if this kind of goes across other niches and other roles as well, but I found one thing that instantly attracted me to Employment Hero is that the role title and the description of what the role was kind of matched. Something that happens a lot in marketing is you get these titles and then a role, and they're a complete mismatch, or they're looking for something that's not what you expect. And I'm sure that happens across other verticals as well. So yeah, I mean, for me, the EVP for Employment Hero definitely stood out. The remote first, as you've already mentioned, Kate, the kind of autonomy, the trust that they have in employees. It was a definite interest to me, and let's not beat around the bush. It definitely beats the rush to London commute that I'd been experiencing, and I'm sure a lot of the audience maybe still experiencing, right? So yeah, from a kind of progression and culture perspective, it really caught my eye. And I was going for another role at the same time I went for the role here, and it was those kind of things that helped me like make my decision ultimately. I think from my perspective as well, something from an outsider's point of view is that the employee value proposition is almost kind of like a window into the business that helps you understand a little bit more about their employer brand, who they are, especially if you haven't come across that business before. And then ultimately the culture within that. When I was a junior, I might have perhaps just found a role that I thought, I can do that, and I would just hit apply, but very much not anymore. I'm very much kind of looking for a business, a company, and a culture, right, that is going to support me and do the best by me. So yeah, that's what I've got on that one.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I would have expected, by the way. Candidates have plenty of options, so they do pay attention to these things.
Absolutely. So with that, let's have a little look at today's employee demographics that we should be aware of. And we're going to kind of go through these one by one, and I'll kind of deliver them. So let's have a look first at the baby boomers. So there's 3.71 million of them employed in the UK right now, makes up 11.7% of the hired demographic. They're known for their loyalty, and they keyed the term workaholic. So thanks for that, boomers. The one thing to bear in mind, though, is that nearly 1.2 million of them had to leave their jobs or were some way forced out of their jobs during the pandemic. So out of the generations in today's workforce, probably hit the hardest by the pandemic. Some of them had to take lower paid jobs, postpone retirement. So now they're looking for seniority, job security, flexibility. So that's something to bear in mind with the boomers in our, going a little bit too fast there, in our workforce. We then have the Gen Xers, youngest being 43, oldest 57. There's 11.4 million of these in the UK workforce. They make up 36.1%, which is the second largest demographic. Over 50% of them, so the vast majority, are holding leadership roles. I wouldn't be surprised if it's quite a bit above 50% now. Studies have found when they're Gen X are looking for new roles, they're looking for strong work-life balance, they want open and honest work, and some of them, 23%, are interested in professional development and collaboration. We then have the millennials. Some would say the best demographic. I don't know who, but some would say that. There's 12.2 million of them employed. They make up the largest percent at 38.6% of the UK employed demographics. When they're looking for jobs, 39% looking for work-life balance, looking for learning and development opportunities, 27% interested in those high salaries and benefits, where 26% want work to be meaningful. Which then brings us on to the youngest of the demographics in our workforce right now, the Gen Zers. Some of them not even in the workforce yet, 11 years old, oldest 26. They make up a similar amount to the boomers within the demographic. 13.6% of them are in our workforce right now. 70% of them are looking for pay or compensation as the most important factor. So interesting point there to kind of dial in on. 67% want to know how they can advance their career. They're looking for employee benefits with a focus on healthcare, and that's not just physical healthcare, definitely mental healthcare as well. They want to have fun at work, and just over half of them are kind of really interested in a commitment to diversity, inclusion, and sustainability from the businesses they work in. So some things that would be interesting to kind of look at on the back of that, as well as some things that they have in common. So they're really, all of them, no matter what generation, are looking for fair compensation, work flexibility, learning development, and some type of benefits. And if you're interested in the kind of benefits these demographics are looking for, Bionic ran a survey on 1,000 employees and found that the top benefits were flexible working, birthdays off, private healthcare, free office snacks, tea and coffee, and a performance bonus. So they're not asking for too much. But for you, Kate, have you found kind of any hidden nuances to hiring and retaining talent across these generations? Is there any guidance or anything you could offer our listeners today?
Yeah, so the trick is really to have an EVP with quite broad appeal. So there's two ways to do that. Option one, you could focus on building out an employee benefits offering and company culture that is what I suppose you could call generationally agnostic. So for example, as you've touched on, candidates across all demographics seem to agree that things like fair compensation and flexible working arrangements are really appealing. So if these are already key components of your EVP, you are off to a strong start. Alternatively, you could focus on trying to offer something for everyone, so to speak. So for example, you might put together a graduate scheme with a focus on rapid career advancement to entice junior talent, but then also offer things like a great pension scheme, flexible hours, things along that front, to try and entice workers who are juggling familial responsibilities. And the other trick is really around how you sell your EVP to potential candidates. So one of my top tips is to ask candidates when they're going through the interview process what they are looking for, why they're leaving their existing organization, and what's important to them in their job search, and really hone in on that information and use it to your advantage. So for example, if they say that they're looking for learning opportunities, tell them about your L&D program. If they live miles away and they hate the commute, talk them through your remote work policy. Really demonstrate that you have listened and focus on what is important to them, and use that as your sales opportunity.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Kate. And that really brings us on to the crux of today's chat between us, which is building an effective EVP. So let's say you're a growing business, Kate. How do you go about crafting or refining this EVP?
Yes, it's a great question. So in my view, I'm sure everyone's got a take on this, but in my view, you should really start by looking at your business goals. You need to create the right culture and attract the right kind of talent to enable you to deliver on those goals. And I can talk you through maybe some practical examples of that. So for example, let's say you are a financial advisory firm and your mission is to make money easy and to empower as many everyday earners as possible to make smart financial decisions and achieve their financial goals. In this instance, it's probably safe to assume that you are looking for employees who are passionate about managing money and making savvy investments. So it would therefore be wise to offer some employee benefits that appeal to this talent pool and this kind of demographic. So that might include things like a really generous pension scheme, stock options, or income protection. The point is really that your culture and the benefits that you offer are reflective of your DNA, your business goals, and the kind of talent that you want to be able to hire and foster. So you have your goals here, and then the benefits and the things you offer kind of work up towards that. So a good example I can think of off the top of my head is probably Airbnb. They are all about enabling people to have the perfect journey. I think their catchline is something along those lines. So several of their employee benefits tie into that. They give people kind of travel allowances and I think a bit more time off, so that they can kind of spend more time traveling. The point being, they then attract people who are genuinely passionate about their mission and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, great. And I guess earlier we had a quick look at kind of all the benefits that our workforce are looking for right now. So in your opinion, Kate, like how do companies know they're offering enough on the benefits side of things?
Yeah, this is tricky. So over time, you obviously get a read on whether or not you're attracting and retaining good talent. If you're not, then that might be indicative of the fact that your EVP is not strong enough. But that takes time. And if you're crafting an EVP from scratch and you want to absolutely nail it first time over, there is definitely some value in assessing your talent competitors. You don't want to spend too much time looking over your shoulders, and it's certainly not about copying them, but it is important to have an awareness of the market. So when your employees resign, where are they going? If a candidate turns down your job offer, who are they going to work for instead? And if you could click your fingers and steal another business's staff because you know they have great talent, which business is it? Where would you take your talent from? If you map out the answers to all three of those questions, you should get a list of companies that you can then go and research and make a note of their benefits and their EVP and their culture. The idea, as I said, is absolutely not to copy them, but to make sure that you are sufficiently competitive. So you might have a very different culture and list of benefits, but provided that it's equally enticing, maybe for different reasons, that really doesn't matter. You should be unique and true to yourself as a business, but still remain competitive in market. So there is a place for assessing competitors and thinking quite carefully about who you're up against.
Yeah, brilliant. And I just want to kind of pick up on that point you made there about being unique. I've just got kind of a little bit of snap advice as well. If you're looking, if businesses out there are looking to do something that's unique to them. Agency I used to work at, small agency, about 20 people in-house. We used to do a series of team challenges called the Apprentice Challenge, right? And it was kind of like a uniquely kind of come up with idea. It was branded, nothing official, but kind of everyone in the UK will know Sir Alan Sugar and the Apprentice Challenges, right? So we had a couple of teams in-house, silly kind of team activities, but people really got into it, really got competitive, and it became part of the culture of our workplace. The team names are still going now. I think they've been going for the last 3 years, right? So it was something quite unique to the culture. And since joining Employment Hero, we have the Global Gathering, which is an incredible, like, once a year, everybody goes to an amazing place in the world. It's kind of work conference meets activities, meets team building. We all align on our mission, etc. And it's, you know, such a big thing here. If you follow anybody at Employment Hero, you'll have seen them raving about it over the past few weeks. We got back from Vietnam very recently, and the whole kind of, you know, resort that we were staying at decked out in our branding and Global Gathering branding, and it was a fantastic experience. So regardless of what size you're at, if you're more of an apprentice challenge size or a Global Gathering size, taking something like the unique that you offer that has become part of your culture is also a really good thing to think about. So we're kind of getting to the end of today's webinar, Kate. So we're looking now at kind of using an employee to scale, employee value proposition to scale. So I have another question for you. Where are the most important places you think an EVP should be present, at least in writing?
I loved your point, by the way, previously. But in answer to your question, job adverts is a really big one. So spread the word. Make sure that if you are paying for all these great benefits and perks and putting a lot of effort into your company culture and your ways of working, that it's really clear and people know that that's what you offer. Careers page, following on from that, is also a really good one. Another cool idea is perhaps to include it in your induction content or in any of the onboarding materials that you send out. That will be a really good way to get new starters excited to join and thinking about how pumped they are for their new role with your organization, and making sure that they're excited and that they have a really good experience in that kind of onboarding phase and first few weeks is really, really critical, and it can set them up for much higher performance in the long term. And I would also get your hiring managers and your HR team or your talent team, whoever you might have, posting about it all over LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I think it's really good to remember as well that it doesn't matter. I know we've touched on this before, right? But it doesn't matter what size your business is, an EVP can really, really help you out. So it's not just for enterprises, you know, it's not just for the Googles out there that can offer everybody lots of benefits, and they have lots of companies raving about them, lots of places highlighting what a fantastic place it is to work. You know, their EVP is unique to them, but EVPs don't just work for businesses that size. It also works for scale-ups like us. We've been talking about this today. We've got some kind of posts there around the Global Gathering that we were talking about. We've also kind of got our unique benefits and things that we offer our employees, and it works just as well for scale-ups as it does for small businesses. So we've got a small tech startup example here, less than 25 employees. They've been voted one of the best places to work in the UK. And they are also, you know, they've got their advocates, their employee advocates on social media singing their praises, and they are able to offer some unique perks and benefits to their employees and attract new work. So that kind of brings us to the end of the points that we wanted to raise with you today. We're now going to kind of open up the floor for some Q&A. So if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, they could be popped in the Q&A box. Kate and I will be ready to answer.
Yeah, there was actually one more thing I wanted to touch on that I think is important before we hand over.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking a little bit more as well around how you can incentivize referrals. So a really big source of talent for us is referrals. And if you spent time crafting a good EVP, in addition to what I just said around kind of having it on job boards, whatever else, wherever else it might be, getting your employees to speak about it organically is really, really important. So firstly, if you are able to offer a referral bonus or some sort of incentive for referring a friend or a former colleague to your company for a live role, that's a great thing to do. And again, coming back to the powerful tool that is LinkedIn, you could also get people sharing posts about what life at your organization is like, any benefits that they offer, what the culture is like, and get them using something like a consistent hashtag across the organization. So anything along those lines that really gets the word out there and gets people referring their connections is really, really valuable. The beauty of a referred candidate is that they're more trusted. We know that they're going to be good because we've hired someone, we know they're fantastic, and they vouch for that person. So if you can try and leverage your EVP to get referrals, that's also a really fantastic way of making the most of it and improving your talent attraction strategies.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Kate. Thanks for that. No, that's really, really useful and interesting, that one. We've got a couple of questions come in. I've got one here. So what perks and benefits do the good SMEs offer is one of the questions. So yeah, Kate, do you want to pick us up on that one?
Yeah, it really varies, I think, depending on the industry. So for example, I know that in tech, remote and flexible working is really, really common. But for some industries, that's actually not as practical because they have roles where maybe they have to be in person. So it tends to be quite industry specific. Coming back to what we were talking about earlier, I would probably try and think a little bit more about your particular business model, what your values are, what you stand for, and what kind of benefits roll up to that. But off the top of my head, some popular ones across the board in the UK would be things like an improved pension scheme, life insurance. Funnily enough, it's not a big one really in Australia, but I know it's popular in the UK. And anything that you can do around additional leave, additional time off, and more flexibility around hours, universally popular.
Yeah, brilliant. And one that I've seen pop up in a couple of roles I've had before that I always think are really good are kind of like apps that help kind of with relaxation or time away from work, right? So anything that's kind of like helping with a little bit of mindfulness. If your people are into kind of like meditation or maybe going off and learning something, so like an Audible sign up or something like that could be really good. Anything that kind of helps with L&D outside of the workplace, if you can offer that as a perk, those are always really great things to have as well. Okay, a couple more questions here, Kate. Let me have a quick look. So we've got one here from Yoti, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. So the question is, we do an annual review of our perks and benefits and change according to feedback. Do you think this diminishes the value of an employee value proposition?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Very interesting. I think that there's definitely a place for getting feedback from your employees, particularly if you've got a high performing workforce and you're really happy with them and you love them and you love the talent that you attract and you want to retain them. It's important to listen to their feedback. Conversely, the challenge with doing that is that there's going to be a myriad of opinions. And if you've got, let's say, 50 members of staff and all 50 of them request something completely different, you're then left in the quite difficult position of having to decide which opinion is more important or sort of having to let someone down. So I think there's probably a place for it, but I'll probably be cautious about how often you gather their feedback and maybe also the expectations that are set around it. So it might be useful having something like a group forum where they can offer ideas and discuss, but really set the expectation that it's not feasible to action every single piece of feedback and that you have to go based off of what is a fit for the business, what the majority are happy with, and what is also attracting the right kind of talent to your organization. It needs a fine balance, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. And let's do, I think we've probably got time for maybe like one more question before we'll kind of tie everything up here, guys. So there's a question that's coming from Laura that says, we offer unlimited holiday. We call it out during our recruitment process. Not sure about adding it to our job ads or anywhere on our website. So what are we thinking about that one?
It's great. Yeah, it's a great perk. It's certainly very enticing to a lot of employees. I suppose it depends on the sort of people you hire and the kind of behaviors you want to encourage. If the demographic that you're hiring for you think is really high performing, really trustworthy, won't abuse that policy, so to speak, and will be mindful about kind of how much leave they take and taking it during kind of key busy times of year for the business, then that's a really great benefit to offer because it's very competitive. But yes, you do obviously need to be a little bit mindful of the commercial impact of that. And it's not pragmatic to have everyone on holiday for 6 months of the year. So I'd actually be interested to hear how you found it, and whether or not you've got any caveats, I suppose, or any requirements around how employees can use that. But yeah, I know a lot of people have had success with it. I think off the top of my head, GitLab, I think, also have an unlimited leave policy and seems to work really well for them. So it's awesome.
Yeah, brilliant. Sounds intriguing, that one. Yeah, I'll also be interested to hear how that's working out for you. Okay, so we have one more question here. I think this is quite a specific one. Okay, so we'll see what we think about this one. Is a 9-day fortnight in demand in design engineering companies in UK and Australia?
Ooh, based on my personal experience, not really. We very really rarely get questions about it. I've had maybe a couple of candidates inquire about it, but it's not the most popular question. There are certainly some people that are interested in a 9-day fortnight setup. I'm sure that will crop up in some conversations. But I'd say perhaps anecdotally, based on my own experience, it's not the number one thing. I think that if you can offer a general level of flexibility and things like remote working to candidates or employees anyway, that tends to help with the overall work-life balance scenario, and maybe how people feel about hours that they're working and what their working patterns look like.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for that one. Tricky specific question, that, but yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we're going to come to a close there, ladies and gents. I can see, sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm seeing things pinging through on the Q&A, but they're more kind of feedback for Kate and I to have a look at afterwards around some of the questions today. So really happy to continue this conversation, by the way, guys. Do feel free to kind of like reach out on LinkedIn and those kind of channels with these answers around kind of unlimited holiday leave. There's lots of questions coming in, or follow-ups for that one, Kate. So best of luck with having a chat around some of those. They look really interesting.
Yeah,
So
reach
just a
out to
quick
me as
reminder.
well on LinkedIn if there's anything I haven't answered, or email us. However, feel free to get in touch, and if there's anything we can help with, I'm always happy to.
Yeah, brilliant. And yeah, just a reminder then, guys, so everything that you've seen today, all the resources we've shared, the slides, it's all going to be shared with you after the presentation today, after the webinar ends. And yeah, I guess that all that really leaves us to say is thank you very much for coming. Thanks for watching. And thank you very much, Kate, for giving up your time and being here with us today.
Pleasure. I'm sorry, my accent these days is probably like 50% British, 50% Australian. So if it's like nails on a chalkboard, then I'm really sorry. But really nice actually to engage with our UK audience and people that engage with our brand over there. So pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be more in this series as well, guys, that are listening. There will be more in the HR masterclasses. So if you have any topics you specifically would like us to cover, or any questions, yeah, do reach out via LinkedIn, do reach out via email. It would be great to have a chat with you all. But for now, that's the end of today's session. So thanks very much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Bye.